Tragos on your left. Jeff Hooglin actually behind Peter as he has his 2 buys this morning. Doing a little bit of scouting, perhaps.
Jeff is a player we've seen very little of. Certainly did well in Baltimore, the first Modern Open Series of the year. Has been working on that format a lot, but compared to his attendance in 2014, we've seen a lot less of him.
We will be underway here in round number 1 from Cleveland. It's a Mystic Monastery to start things off for Rill, or as some call him, Eric Thrill.
And I think you just called him that.
I think we should maybe you should adopt that nickname. We're innovators here in the booth. A Temple of Deceit for Peter. Now here is a Wooded Foothills for Eric. A Forest here for Rill.
So Eric's deck is definitely a solid 4 colors here, but the base of it is green. And part of that green base is something that has had a big uptick in popularity, which is Deathmist Raptor alongside Den Protector. We're seeing those cards show up in a variety of green mid-range and control strategies.
I wouldn't call it a combo, but it certainly feels that way. Those cards are typically side by side with each other.
Well, they are reasonable cards on a 1-for-1 basis, and then as the games go on, then you get to see their synergies. It's rare that it comes up early on in the game, but on long games you start seeing the combo come up.
There is Deathmist Raptor. We'll see if this does resolve. Looks like it will. Frontier Bivouac, just a passing of the turn. Back over to Tragos we go.
Deathmist Raptor is another card I expect to uptick in popularity if people are trying to beat Esper Dragons, as it's not the easiest thing for the deck to block, and Esper Dragons is pretty good at blocking. And removal spells and such are not necessarily the most effective because there's always the risk of you getting it back.
Rill with an attack and a Flooded Strand. Hero's Downfall is going to go after the Deathmist Raptor. What's going to be interesting about this tournament is we're going to see just how good Esper Dragons is this weekend over the course of many tournaments. Valor Stance is going to counter that Hero's Downfall. We'll go to Peter's 4th turn, but you have to imagine that people are either looking to beat this deck or a lot of people are looking to play this deck. So we're going to see really where this deck lines up this weekend.
Oh, for sure. I mean, no one's going to be caught off guard by this deck, that's for sure. Not after Cheapy Krakow.
Deathmist Raptor coming across here for 3 more points of damage. A mountain there for Rill. Now, Eric does have a lot of crazy stuff going on in his deck. I know that. You have the deck list in front of you.
So 4 copies of Sarkhan Unbroken, which is actually a card we saw appear in a teamer list that Jerry Thompson posted on the deck list of the day side for Star City Games. And Ugin, 2 copies of Elspeth, 2 Valor Sands, 2 Dramoka's Command, a Disdainful Stroke. The creature base here, Caryatid, Rattleclaw Mystic, Deathmist Raptor, Den Protector, Courser, Dragonlord Dramoka, and Dragonlord Atarka.
Okay.
So the sampler.
Yeah, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
A lot of mana in this deck. 26 lands on top of Caryatid, 2 copies of Rattleclaw Mystic, and 4 Courser Krufix. So this is a very mana-intensive deck.
Of course, the way you're able to get an advantage here if your Rill is, your opponent doesn't know what's coming. You're casting a lot of different cards. You have a lot of different mana. They might be expecting one thing, and you have something different entirely. Caryatid, I think, is the only card you really can expect from this sort of deck because it's kind of the glue that holds it all together.
Exactly. And you're starting to see some of the problems for Eric in this kind of matchup. He just has a lot of mana. And as the game goes on, Peter has his counter spells, he's got his removal spells, those trade 1 for 1. It's pretty hard for Eric to get much of anything going because so many of his draw steps are just dead land draws.
Peter is the one without mana right now. He has been stuck on 4 mana for a little bit here. But that means that his hand is all spells, obviously, so you have to imagine his hand is pretty good at this point, as he'll take a draw step. Looks like he has found a land to copy Dismal Backwater. So he will gain a life, go up to 15. Eric's going to sacrifice his Windswept Heath. Forest or Plains on the way, and he'll go down a little bit lower. There is a forest. So we'll see how things line up here for Rill because it looks like Peter is short on lands and Eric is beginning to flood out here.
And usually that's bad for the deck that's flooding out, assuming that there's no pressure involved. When the board's clean, it's going to be much harder for Eric to draw a sequence of impactful creatures in a row than it will be for Peter to just draw a land or 2.
Rill will have 3 mana, and we've got our first morph of the day. What's unique about Eric's deck is this could mean many different things, of course.
Yeah, these morphs are big-time trouble for Peter because they all usher back the Deathmist Raptor that's in the graveyard.
Yep. And again, there is Deathmist Raptor as a morph. There is Den Protector as a morph. We can't forget about Rattleclaw Mystic as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to play a little bit of a morph game against Peter's deck and make him think about things a little bit. think Peter giving some thought to if this morph is going to resolve or not.
Well, I definitely like countering it if you can. I don't want to fight with these things while they're in play.
Well, it looks like it's entered the battlefield now, however. There is a removal spell to go after the morph. Looks like it's Death Miss Raptor with how much mana is being tapped. And it is, so that's going to bring Death Miss Raptor back. It might actually come back face down to bring back the other Death Miss Raptor.
Yeah, it very feels like the game's just going to go on for a very long time. Might as well.
You know, one of the unique things about Death Miss Raptor is that when it does come back from the graveyard, you can have it come back face up or face down.
And there's a lot of little things going on with the design.
Yeah.
It is not necessarily the smoothest design, but if you just want to promote morphs in Constructed in a general way, this is a pretty good way to do it.
That's nice that they printed a Raptor with Jurassic Park coming out soon. That's very smart by Wizards of the Coast.
Cross-brand synergies.
Indeed. Here is a dismal backwater.
Have you ever seen the scene in Jurassic Park where dude's having the hallucination on the airplane and the raptor's talking to him?
I have not.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's not.
The sequels were not as good as the original. Alan!
Missed that. Wasn't much of a Jurassic Park kid.
Oh.
I did play a video game called Dino Crisis, however.
This might be another place where our differences in age are highlighted.
Indeed.
Jurassic Park, for me, was the defining experience of my childhood.
Ah, fair enough. Fair enough. Slumgar Scorn. I think we have a Dragon reveal. We do. It is Slumgar the Drifting Death. That morph was a Den Protector. It's in the graveyard now. Pass the turn back. Slumgar Scorn, very, very powerful card.
Yeah, and part of the reason this deck is as popular and powerful as it is, R&D does just not get you 2-mana counterspells very often unless they come with a lot of conditionals. Now, it is conditional in a way. You need to be playing with a lot of dragons, but again, you don't get counterspell like you used to.
And don't really mind playing with a lot of dragons if they're super powerful, like, say, Slumgar the Drifting Death is. Rill is tapping a lot of mana. That's a dragon, too. That one's going to resolve. It is Ugin the Spirit Dragon. Peter Tragos, has used a lot of copies of Hero's Downfall already as well.
That was not a shabby top deck there for Eric by any stretch. One copy in the main deck. He's drawing pretty thin there. A couple of his dragons are fine in that spot, though no guarantee they do much of impact. Any morph is very powerful, but past that, he doesn't have a lot of very good draws left in his deck, and Ugin certainly qualifies as one of the few.
And Peter went for broke with that Slumgar, got countered by the Disdainful Stroke. That's in Eric's main deck, and then he peeled that Ugin off the top. So now Tragos has got some real work to do. He'll go with Slumgar yet again. He has 2 copies of that particular Slumgar this weekend. Sometimes you'll see main deck copies of Dragonlord Slumgar, but Peter has 2 main deck copies of Slumgar the Drifting Death. I want to make sure that's not too confusing for you at home. 5 dragons in the main deck here for Peter, and 3 Dragonlord Ojutai, and then 2 Slumgar.
And I believe that was a Sarkhan Unbroken off the top there for Eric.
Hello.
And Eric's deck, the first one that I've seen with Sarkhan Unbroken capable of making use of the ultimate. Dragonlord Dramoka and Dragonlord Atarka hanging out here.
Very nice. That is adorable.
Yeah.
Eric will tap 5 mana for Sarkhan Unbroken. This might be Sarkhan's debut here at FCG
I
Live.
believe it is.
Welcome to the party, Sarkhan Unbroken. Gonna draw a card and add a mana, will Rill. He'll play a land. Does have a mana floating at this point.
And he picked up a Den Protector.
Not bad.
So that's not a bad way to fill in the gaps here.
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Little Planeswalker party. Ugin's gonna move on up to 11 counters. Rill looking to win what has been a bit of a longer game, but his mid-range deck looks like it can go toe-to-toe with control decks.
It was looking at like a spot where Eric was falling behind. Not that Peter had done much of substance, but you just got a sense that Eric was running out of action. Peter had missed some land drops early on in the game. And Peter's deck is mostly removal, card drawing, and some big threats, so it looked like a good spot. But Eric with some timely draws back-to-back, and Peter, as you mentioned, has used a lot of his copies of Hero's Downfall, so working through these Planeswalkers is going to be a big challenge.
There's a swamp. Thinks he got Ugin of his own. A little Ugin on Ugin battle here. All right. Don't see this break out very often.
Usually you want to be the one going first.
I think that's the case, yeah. Looks like Ugin's going to tick down and kill some stuff. It's down to 2 counters. Slumgar's going to go there. Check Ugin back down to 8, pass the turn back. We'll see what Rill wants to do on his turn.
Well, if he drew Den Protector, then
Which he did.
Peter is in big time trouble.
Rill will start by ticking up Ugin.
The Den Protector gets back a lot of copies of Death Mist Raptor, and so there's some juicy stuff to get back from the graveyard. It's easy to get hung up on something like Sarkin, but Disdainful Stroke or Valor stance here could actually be the big prizes.
Polluted Delta will be sacrificed here by Peter. There is the Mighty Spirit Dragon. Both players having access to it this particular weekend. With Peter sacrificing right away, you have to imagine he's got something to do this turn. Feels like maybe a dig through time's on the way, but we'll see. So he has 6 mana. He'll play Dragon Lord's Prerogative. This will be uncounterable because he has a dragon in play. So it looks like 4 cards are going to be coming here for Peter.
You saw Eric maybe try to make a move there with the Den Protector, but Peter stopping him, letting him know it's uncounterable.
It's interesting. I remember we had kind of revealed this card at Grand Prix Miami. I didn't really get all that excited about it. You know, to me, it was just like, oh, this is like an opportunity with the Dragon Claws. Not sure how much the uncounterability is actually going to matter. It's turned out quite a bit.
Yeah.
Den Protector is going to be unmegamorphed. Going to get back Den Protector and bring back 2 copies of Death Mist Raptor. Not bad.
Yep, this is the power of this package in games that go on for a very long time. Death Mist Raptor and Den Protector were both just fine on their own this game, and then you get into sequences like this where it's just too much for Peter to overcome. Peter just drew 4 cards. I think he's got at least 1 copy of Foul Tongue Invocation in his hand, but these removal spells don't amount to much right now. They're just buying him a little bit of time.
There is the Foul Tongue Invocation that you do mention. It's going to take care of the Den Protector. The Death Mist Raptors will stay in play. Attack for 6 points of damage here. Tragos will gain a little bit of life. Eric's going to deal some healthy amount of damage, but by putting Den Protector in the graveyard from the Foul Tongue Invocation, and we know that Rill has a copy of Den Protector in his hand, he can really just get this loop going.
Exactly. This is very hard for Peter to get out from under.
And this is the loop that a lot of people try to establish with Den Protector. And it's funny, you know, we date ourselves a little bit here in the booth sometimes, but we've seen this before with Eternal Witness.
Yes. Though, Eternal Witness on its own isn't ushering back 6 points of power alongside with it.
Correct.
So control decks were sometimes able to overpower that loop just because at the end of the day, all you're doing is recurring 2/1s. This makes her cards quite a bit more powerful in concert with each other.
Indeed. And that text on Den Protector, on Megamorph, giving it a +1/+1 counter, making it a 3/2 at times unblockable creature, that matters too.
Comes up a lot against Elspeth.
Yep.
It's a place where we see it a lot. Also, we saw, I don't exactly remember exactly what the deck was, but it was a green aggressive deck where it was very nice alongside Boon Satyr. Because the Boon Satyr died early on in the game, and that's a very powerful card to get back in a longer game, and goes great on the Den Protector because of that clause you just mentioned.
Here's Crux of Fate. Drago's not going to give up here. He still has plenty of cards in his hand. Foul Tongue Invocation, excuse me, kept his life relatively high given the situation. He's at 5, looking to stabilize at that life total.
I mean, the challenge here is he's going to have to... This unmorphing here from Eric can get the Den Protector out of his graveyard, or excuse me, get the Disdainful Stroke out of his graveyard.
Too. Peter comes ready, though. He has a Dissolve. And now the house can crumble for Eric because by unmegamorphing Den Protector and not getting back Den Protector and trying to counter the Crux of Fate, he has an Ugin, which is obviously still really good, and can just maybe go to the Dome twice, but this could be a little bit of trouble here.
It's sort of all the same, though, because if Peter has a counter spell, you either see it now or you see it next turn when you try to play your Den Protector.
Sure.
The upside here is that now you have all your mana available for this turn, so if you draw something big, you can cast it.
Well, let's see if you draw something big. I believe it was a copy of Dramoka's Command, which in this matchup is not something big at all. Ugin's going to tick up. Going to shoot Peter, no surprise there. Pass that turn back.
You know, that last couple turns have not gone great for Eric, but Ugin is still here uncontested.
Yep. And Peter has to probably just keep attacking it. Doesn't really have much of a choice. suppose he could shift gears and start going towards Eric's life total, but then you're leaving Ugin there just kind of unchecked. So
And Ugin's ultimate's probably pretty hard to beat in this spot.
I would imagine so. Peter's going to play a copy of Dragon Lord Ojutai now. He'll pass the turn back over to Rill. Rill says, I'll shoot you. And that is going to do it. So Eric Rill's going to win game number 1 here over Peter Tragos. 4-color mid-range, up a game here over Esper Dragons, the deck that is probably going to be the heaviest played this weekend. We will start with Peter's sideboard and see 2 copies of Thoughtseize, 2 copies of Disdainful Stroke, a negate, 2 Drown in Sorrow, another copy of Foul Tongue Invocation. Got a self-inflicted wound as well here. 2 copies of Dragon Lord's Slumgar, 2 Risen Executioner, a Duress, and a Dragon Lord's Prerogative, another one of those in the sideboard.
Everything for games that go long here, so the copies of Thoughtseize, the additional counterspells, the Dragon Lord's Prerogative, just things for longer games. I think the spot removal in this matchup is not going to be great for Peter. There is self-inflicted wound, and he has another copy of Foul Tongue Invocation. He may want to bring those in, but Eric's deck did show a lot of resilience towards Edict effects between Death Mist Factor, Den Protector, and Sylvan Caryatid. I'm not sure that's something Peter's going to want to do, but they are anti-green cards and anti-creature cards in what is ostensibly a green creature matchup.
What do we see from this 4-color mid-range deck?
An Ajani Mentor of Heroes, a Nissa Worldwaker, another copy of Elspeth, an Arbor Colossus, a Mistcutter Hydra, a Glare of Heresy, an Encase in Ice, a Circle of Flame, a Roast, a Master of the Unseen, a Treasure Cruise, 2 Negates, and 2 Disdainful Strokes. Much the same story here. The counter spells are going to be great for Eric, the 2 copies of Negate and the additional copies of Disdainful Stroke. I like the Treasure Cruise a lot. The Planeswalkers and the Mistcutter Hydra and the Master of the Unseen all seem like cards Eric's going to want.
Mistcutter Hydra kind of making a return back to the spotlight.
Well, there's just a lot more counterspell decks and a lot more blue decks floating around than we've seen in the last couple of months. And it's a pretty solid response the turn your opponent taps out for Dragon Lord Ojutai. Or any of the other dragons. It's very powerful that turn.
Indeed. Well, for those of you watching at home, we appreciate having you. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, we'll have Ken Crocker in the sideboard. A lot of talk about this particular weekend and what's going to happen with the Season 2 race. How good is Esper Dragons, and will it hold up from what happened? You can share your opinion right now in the feature match area here at twitch.tv/SCGLive.
Yeah, the chat has not been available for a while, but it is back. If you're not a subscriber, you are in slow-mo chat, which means you can only post once every 2 minutes. But with an only $4.99 a month subscription, you get access to unlimited posting and these custom emoticons and badges with more coming down the pipeline. Twitch.tv/SCGLive to hop into the feature match area right now.
Plenty of custom emoticons coming down the line for Season 2. At the Season 2 Invitational. But right now we have, of course, myself, Patrick Mathias, our Jetpack Penguin, and our Slow Play Turtle. Twitch.tv/SCGLive. We appreciate you guys joining us early this morning and hopefully throughout the day as we work our way through 9 rounds of standard action. Again, a lot of big players here for the Season 2 race. Kevin Jones, Ross Merriam, Gerard Fabiano, Andrew Boswell.
The players you all mentioned, of course, with 2 buys. We'll see them starting in round 3. And Season 2, a very short season.
The race is on Danny Jessup as well. Danny Jessup tied right now with Kevin Jones to try to get that invite to the Players' Championship on points alone. Jessup has had a nice string of finishes. Doesn't have that title yet. We've seen him make top 8s traveling with his good friend Jim Davis. I know they both went to Dallas. Jim made the finals there. Danny made the top 4. Jim actually knocked him out of the tournament. Danny, of course, the Season 4 Invitational runner-up. And he was the odd man out as far as the Players' Championship was concerned. If he had won the Season 4 Invitational, he would have qualified, or if he had one more Open Series point, he would have beaten out Stephen Mann.
You can't get that much closer.
No.
Missing out by a point for an at-large bid and being a runner-up in the last Invitational, that is literally as close as you can get without qualifying.
And he wants to earn it. He wants to get there, and he wants to get it done in this season. Right now, he is tied with Kevin Jones. So this is a very important tournament. Last weekend actually was a tough tournament for Danny too, because he got off to a rough start. Started to really run off some wins with his Obzon deck, and then he lost his second to last match to make the top 8.
And those tournaments are especially rough because, you know, your tiebreakers are likely in a rough spot when you take those early losses. So you battle all the way back and then get hit in the last couple of rounds. Often you're finishing, you know, you're one of the people with your record who finishes outside the top 32 or outside the top 16. So those can be really brutal, exhausting tournaments. But he's still got to keep his nose on the grindstone. There's only so many tournaments left to go. He's in a great position to get that invite, but you are correct. That's a was not an ideal tournament last week by any stretch.
And it was, it was a top 16 finish, which you're never going to be unhappy with. But given what he's looking to accomplish, for him, that's coming up a little short.
To me, the big story this weekend is actually Kevin Jones, because he has been giving up ground most Open Series weekends.
Sure.
Has not had a very good performance in a while, Danny and Ross and Gerard have been banging out, these top 8s, these top 16s pretty consistently throughout the year so far. And he's at risk of slipping in the standings, for sure.
No, without question. And he's been playing Jeskai for some time now, as he always does. He's always casting Mantis Rider, that's his thing, but has just not really put up the results that he put up, at the back end of last year.
I know that he had a day 2 in Syracuse and had a very tough day 2. Wasn't a very good, I think, X1 and 1 or X2 at the end of day 1 in Syracuse, but I think in Providence he missed day 2 altogether.
Yep. Been a rough road.
Yeah, with the assistance of 2 buys, it's been a rough string of tournaments for sure.
You have to wonder if he's going to switch decks.
Possibly, or at least settle on one particular build. His build does seem to be in flux more than you look at someone like Andrew Boswell. There's definitely differences week to week in his obs on aggro list, but there's never wholesale changes.
Yeah.
Whereas Kevin Jones, I feel like there's wholesale changes going on with this list week after week. Not to say that's necessarily a mistake, but I'm much more comfortable with someone who sticks with the same deck when the main deck changes by 2 cards, or there's 4 new cards in the sideboard or something. When it's things like, all right, now I have Elspeth in my main deck or not, which are pretty radical overhauls to that deck, I'm a little less comfortable from a viewer perspective.
We talk about how close this race is. If you guys didn't see it at the top of the show, you can see it right now. Just Jones, Jessup, they're tied with 199 Open Series points. Joe Lissette, 188, Ross Merriam, 187, and then Gerard Fabiano, 183. So it is just unbelievably close. 1 win, 1 top 8, 1 solid finish for any of these guys, and you really start to build a lead.
And a lot of these players, I would say 4 of the 5 of them have to be very uncomfortable, because next weekend is Portland, which is a show that's very easy for Joe to get to, living in Southern California, and it's a cross-country hike for everyone else. So we'll see. I'm sure what happens in this tournament is going to determine whether or not these people are booking last-minute flights to come out to Oregon, but they had to keep in mind that Joe's got a pretty big edge next week in terms of making up some ground.
Temple of Planning to start on Rill side, a Temple of Enlightenment. Let's make it 2 for Peter.
And you can easily imagine Joe flying out to Worcester for the Legacy Open.
Of course.
Loves Legacy.
Yeah.
And after that, then you're at the Invitational.
It's Legacy Specialist, Joe Lissette.
Yeah, 4-time Standard Open champion / Legacy Specialist,
Indeed.
Joe Lissette.
Indeed. Here's a Rattleclaw Mystic for Rill. We'll go back Peter's way. See if he's got some black mana hanging out here. That's what he's currently missing. There's a Caves of Coilus, so he does. Here's a Foul-Tongue Invocation. Doesn't look like he has a Dragon to reveal, so just going to get that Rattleclaw off the board, stunt Rill's development a little bit, and pass it back to him.
Usually you just have to cast Edicts on the first thing that show up.
Deathmiss Raptor is the next play here for Rill. Peter will draw. An island. And we head back Rill's way. He'll attack for 3. This will bring Peter down to 16. See if Rill has some sort of fancy follow-up here. You can see some counter spells in his hand negate, and it looks like Disdainful Stroke as well. And they'll just pass the turn back, perhaps play a little bit of Protect the Raptor.
No reason to add to this board any further for the time being. And we see this package come in a lot for blue decks with creatures that can make life pretty hard on a deck like Esper Dragons. The negates and the Disdainful Strokes, backed up by Deathmiss Raptor and Den Protector. It's a very cohesive package for beating a control deck.
And we've got ourselves a Morph. Rill with all that different mana out there, he's got to figure out how he wants to tap for it. He'll use 2 forests and a mountain.
We often joke about it could be anything when it comes to morphs, but in this deck, it could be anything.
Yeah, nowadays we're getting to the point where morphs are actually getting so good that this could be a lot of different things. Of course, we have access to the deck list, so we know that it can only be really Rattleclaw Mystic, the very powerful Den Protector, which just got countered by Dissolve, or Deathmiss Raptor, but it wouldn't be surprising to maybe see Eric Rill say, hey, it's actually a Sagu Mauler, for example. Here's a Swamp there for Peter. His first painless black source of mana. Courser of Krufix, the draw for Rill. Looks like he's going to start there.
Yeah, Courser was a really nice pickup this turn for Eric because, he wanted to add to his board. He had another Den Protector in hand, but you don't really want to tap out or tap low to put that thing into play. So a creature to play this turn that isn't one of his critical pieces is really nice, especially because it fits so nicely in his mana curve, allowing him to leave up the gate.
We're looking at Disdainful Stroke on top of the deck, and he's considering if he wants to put it on the top or the bottom. Little mind game here because he has Stroke and Negate in his hand, so by putting that Disdainful Stroke to the bottom, maybe he's trying to trick Peter and thinking, I don't actually have a counterspell right now at this point.
Also, I think Eric's just on the hunt for more and more mana.
Yep.
He's got a lot to do with what's in his hand.
Here is 6 mana. There is Dragonlord Slumguard. That's going to get countered, I have to imagine. There's Disdainful Stroke to take care of that. You'll take a look at Rill's mana base. He does not have 2 white mana, only 1 in play right now, so we'll see if he's able to draw 1. He is not. It's a Temple of Mystery on top. He'll play that, however.
Hit my 7th land and another dual land, just still color screwed.
And he might have to leave this Windswept Heath on top of his deck to not be color screwed anymore. And it looks like he's going to do that. Did gain a life, of course, with the Temple of Mystery. Here is the Morph and Den Protector.
And right now he's just wearing Peter out.
Yep.
He's still got Counterspell in hand. He's got Death Raptor in his graveyard that comes back.
Just grinding him down.
And a lot of this is facilitated by the fact that Eric gets all these counterspells post-board. In game 1, Peter can try to catch up, even if Eric does all these kind of shenanigans with things like Crux of Fate and Dragonlord's Prerogative. When Peter is kept off of his critical spells, Eric's 2-for-1s and cards that make play in the game awkward for Peter, they become very, very powerful.
Peter going to sacrifice his blue to Delta. Get a land out of his deck, down to 12. You see Ugin in his hand, but he's a mana away from casting that. But even if the Spirit Dragon says, I can play this, he'll tap out to cast Ugin. And we know Rill has Negate, so he's absolutely going to counter that. And now the window is open here for Rill to resolve his Elspeth if he'd like. Top card of the deck is Frontier Bivouac. However, with Haven of the Spirit Dragon being the land that was played, a little bit of recursion available for Peter.
It's a slow burn, and with Eric having the ability to get back Negate or Disdainful Stroke, assuming the Morph is Den Protector, that just might be a little too slow. If Peter doesn't draw a spell next turn, he's going to do that regardless. He just has to.
We're going to play his Frontier Bivouac. He'll attack here for at least 4 points of damage.
I don't think he wants to unmorph the Den Protector just yet because it's not clear to him whether or not he wants Negate or Disdainful Stroke. They're the same card against a lot of cards, but there is some differentiation.
The land is a Temple of Enlightenment. And if you're Eric, this gives you the green light to unmorph your Den Protector, get back your Den Protector, get back your Death Raptor. And what we're looking at here, I believe, my friend,
this
is a lethal
8.
attack.
This is 8.
Yeah. Death Miss is 3, Den Protector is 3, Forcer is 2. An extension of the hand. Eric Rill is going to win this match over Peter Tragos. 2 games to 0, actually. Excuse me. 4-color mid-range going to take care of Esper Dragons early on in the day here from Cleveland. We're going to keep our eyes on Esper Dragons and its performance all weekend long, of course, as we expect it to be heavily played. We don't expect the same from 4-color mid-range, but I will say Rill's deck did look pretty impressive in those 2 games.
I think game 1 he got a little bit fortunate. He did top deck his one Ugin kind of on the exact right time.